Hello and welcome. I am Dr. Lara May, a clinical pharmacist specializing in functional medicine, as well as a certified yoga teacher and Reiki master. I run a truly integrative health coaching practice encompassing functional medicine lab testing, yoga and meditation, and a sprinkling of Reiki energy medicine. Join me here on Light Body Radio to break through your health plateau and come into alignment with your natural vitality. Hello and welcome to Light Body Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Lara May, and today we have with us a special guest, Heather Hornung. She is a certified energy healer and human design guide who teaches others how to heal on an energetic level in order to connect with their purpose and transform their lives. As someone who has struggled with people pleasing and was a magnet for narcissists, she reached her rock bottom when her whole life imploded. So we're going to ask her about that if she's okay to talk about it. And this turn of events sent her on a healing journey that forced her to confront her deepest fears and reconnect with her own life in order to take agency and step into her personal power, which I am super excited to hear about. And I think will really help a lot of people to hear your story and your journey. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lara, for having me. It's such a pleasure to be a guest on your podcast today. And yeah, where do I begin? Gosh, I had this experience where I just woke up one day and I was like, how did I get here? Whose life am I living? And who am I living for? I had reached this place where I was like utterly exhausted, felt completely disconnected from myself, and I was overwhelmed. I was so busy doing, being, trying to meet everyone else's needs in my life, trying to manage everybody else's perceptions and experiences. And it was exhausting.
Yeah.
And right around that time, the gift of human design appeared in my life. I wasn't looking for it. Somebody just randomly introduced me to it, and I was like, "What is this?" And I just created this like fascination within me that I just kept pursuing. I couldn't get enough. I just went down that rabbit hole. And through that, I learned so much about, I'm going to bring up this word, conditioning, which was something that I wasn't even aware of. I didn't know that that was a thing. I didn't know that so much of who I was being was who I was taught to be. And I was living in this way where I was doing what I thought I had to do in order to get what I was supposed to want. I was on this track of meeting other people's expectations. This formula of, if you do this, you go to school, you get married, you get a job, you follow this career path, then everything's going to be great and you're going to be happy and fulfilled. And it could not have been further from the truth. And it's like, I can look back now and see every time that I made a decision based on what the pressure I was feeling from the outside of me was guiding me towards, the further I stepped away from what was meant for me, from my own authentic desires and connection. Oh, yeah, it really led me down this whole healing journey. And over the past 7 years, my life has been completely like turned on its head. As you said, it imploded. And it's been a matter of just rebuilding it in a way that's really authentic and genuine to who I am.
Well, I feel like nothing in this life is constant except the change. And when we've had an awakening, sometimes it takes an implosion to either number one to either wake us up, or if we've had the awakening first, and then sort of that implosion to really propel us on the path that we're supposed, like, quote unquote, supposed to be on, or our true soul's path, versus, like you said, the path of, I'm living this life for all these other people but not myself, or I'm living this life because this is the things that society says I'm supposed to have done or accomplished by a certain age, and for my gender and for my station in life, all the things, all the BS. So
Yeah.
I would like to ask you if we could start with just explaining what human design is. And then I think, like, your experiences will be woven throughout the conversation from there.
Yeah, great. So human design is a tool for helping you build self-awareness. I like to explain it as a combination of the chakra system and astrology. So just like astrology, you take your birth information, your location, the date, the time, and you plug it into a calculator, and it shows you, like, in relation to the planets of the solar system at the moment of your birth, like, what are these imprintings, these energetic imprintings that you took on? And it more defines it down into specifically, how does your energetic body work in correlation to that imprinting? So
Okay.
it's related to, if anyone's heard of the I Ching, it's the 64 hexagrams of behavior. So these are archetypes. They also correspond to the 64 codons in the human genome system. So these
Mm.
are traits that we are born with, the way that we are, like, hardwired to be. And everybody has a very specific set of these traits based on when they were born, because those planetary influences are consistently shifting.
Hmm.
So there are 5 different energy types in the human design system, and everybody has one of these 5. And based on your energy type, you have a specific strategy for helping you to make aligned decisions, for connecting you to how your energy works best, most effectively and efficiently, so that you're not constantly, like, making things more difficult than they need to be. It was really like a comprehensive way of understanding how your own body is meant to work. So it's like your blueprint for your life.
And is there room for sort of like creative manifestation and like creative destiny within that too? Like, it's not all like predetermined, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what's so beautiful about it, is like every decision that you make is going to lead you somewhere. If we think about, like, a decision tree, you choose option A, you're going to lead down a very different path than if you choose option B.
Hmm.
And knowing that you came into this life, well, it's predicated on this idea that you came into this life with a specific, like, mission. And are these decisions that you're making getting you closer to that or further away? And there is no, like, right or wrong. It's all an experiment. It's all meant to, like, teach you things about yourself. And through that process of making decisions, you come to know more deeply what that is that you're here to do. And it's fun to, like, watch your own life unfold in that way,
Hmm.
of, like, following this journey of where your heart's really leading you.
Yeah, and I think it's important to also at this point out that when we talk about like soul purpose and soul mission, it doesn't necessarily have to be something big, huge, grand, like holding office or being a celebrity or or an influencer, excuse me, or any of those things. Your sole purpose or mission is just whatever your soul chose before you incarnated in this body to sort of figure out, to
Mhm.
navigate. And that's one of the beautiful things that I think about, like this realm of earth, is it's a realm of polarity. So we're often presented with choices, and it's a definitely a realm of free will. And so you get to choose. You get to choose between the shadow and the light, between, like you said, path A or path B. And at any point, if you don't like the outcome, you get to make another choice, and that's amazing. And so
Yeah.
so maybe your path or your mission or your contract, whatever, however you want to phrase it, is to like really live into, I don't know, like a family dynamic. Or maybe it's to live into being, an independent career person. Or, it could be any number of things. But I feel like sometimes when we use these phrases, our minds and or again society sort of brings with it this luggage of, oh, it has to be big and flashy. And so no, not necessarily.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And honestly, that is something I struggled with for a lot of my life until I was introduced to human design. I was like, I know there's something like meant for, I know there's something bigger than just like what I'm currently doing, but I just could never figure out what that was. And then when I was introduced to human design, it was like, wait a minute, I'm putting way too much emphasis and pressure on this like thing that's completely beyond my control that I have no idea.
Mhm.
And it's more about who you're here to be
Mhm.
than what you're here to do.
Right.
And that being is living into authentically like who you are and sharing your gifts from this place of knowing your value and wanting to contribute to the collective because I feel like that's where true fulfillment is experienced is when you're in that sweet spot of being able to use your unique gifts in a way that betters the world. Even if that's like the people in your neighborhood,
Mhm.
um, the people you
Yeah.
come across every day. That's not this necessarily this huge thing that our ego wants us to trick us into thinking it is. It can be
Right.
something that just feels really unique and authentic to who we are.
Well, and also keeping in mind, like you said, that you use the word collective and or like we are all connected. We are part of the energetic fabric of the universe. And so when we make even just a positive impact on our neighbor or a friend or family member or a perfect stranger that we see walking down the street, that has a ripple effect. And that this is actually part of the laws of thermodynamics too. Like for every action is an equal and opposite reaction. And so if we think about like how much positivity and goodness we could put out into the world, again, like you said, just by living from an authentic place, living from love and kindness and just a little bit of service. So, with
Mhm.
that piece, because in your bio, there was a little snippet there about people pleasing and being a magnet for narcissists. So, I also sort of want to like start to flesh this out. So, where's the
Yeah.
line between overgiving and people pleasing, which I think all of us could have a tendency to, especially depending on how we were raised and how we were conditioned. But I definitely see it very much like within the realm of being feminine. That is sort of
Mhm.
part of the societal archetype of the feminine. Like you're supposed to mother and give and parent almost to a fault, which is not
Yes.
healthy. And so
Yeah.
we've seen this pendulum swing, but and then also we've seen it swing towards more narcissistic behavior and tendencies. So I'm just going to leave that open for you to jump in and give me your 2 cents and your experience and what you think.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I feel like my life created this perfect storm of making me into this people pleaser. I was raised in an evangelical Christian home that's very conservative, and from a very young age, this was like cemented into my brain. The acronym JOY: Jesus, others, you. So first, you live in service to Jesus, then you live in service to others, and then whatever's left, hopefully you get something for yourself. So
Oh,
right
wow.
away, I was coming from this worldview of like, I come last, and that's how I
Mhm.
be a good person. That's how I be of service to the world. That's how I be a good Christian. That was a lot to get to like
Right.
move past. So then I became a mom at 19. Already now my life is no longer about me. Like the focus
Right.
is already like on this other person. And how do I take care of her? How do I, put all of my needs and goals aside in order to create like stability and a loving environment for this new person that's now in the world that I'm 100% responsible for?
Sure.
So there was a lot of pressure from that. And then because I grew up in the church, so much pressure to then get married to the father of my child.
Mhm.
And this was not a very healthy relationship because people pleasers, they are kind of a perfect match for somebody with narcissistic tendencies. They're exactly who a narcissist is looking for
Mm.
because they are willing to put themselves aside. They are more concerned with the other and prioritizing what the other needs. And they will put up with so much, like willing to settle for scraps in order to maintain connection. Because the things that are most important to a people pleaser are maintaining connection, um, and feeling like you're being validated from your external circumstances. And as somebody who have been empathic my whole life, I didn't realize that piece until human design. And then I could see like my energy blueprint. I was like, my emotion center is completely open, meaning I am somebody who is constantly taking in the emotional energy of my environment. I'm
Mhm.
experiencing it in my own body. And I'm thinking that those are my feelings and that there's something wrong with me that I need to correct. So I was constantly like trying to manage everything in my environment in order to feel like a sense of peace and inner, calm for myself,
Mhm.
not realizing like, actually, that's not my stuff.
Right.
So, not knowing these things and just like trying my best to control my environment and make the people around me happy so that I felt safe. Because if you're not familiar with some of the narcissistic tendencies, one of them is being really emotionally volatile. And of
Mm.
course, it's a spectrum and it can show up in different ways for different people. But they have this deep sense of insecurity. And so they almost borrow their security from the people around them. And they can be, how do I say this? Like very unstable
Mhm.
inside of themselves because they don't have that sense of self worth, that sense of self identity.
Mhm.
And so being easily threatened by situations outside of them, being easily provoked, they can have this tendency to be really volatile and explosive. And that was definitely the dynamic that I was in. I was this peacemaker, this mediator, this person who just wanted everyone to get along and
Mhm.
life and calm. And yet I was with this partner who was the exact opposite. And I can see how for him, I created a sense of security and stability. But for me, he created a freaking tornado that I
Mhm.
was constantly like working to manage and clean up. And my life became 100% chaos.
Mhm.
And all of my time and energy was focused on like managing the situation. And this was like my first relationship. We met in high school
Yeah.
and I didn't know that relationships could be different because my mom and dad had kind of a similar dynamic.
Mm.
And so I was just so conditioned to believe like, oh, this is what love is. You put yourself aside to take care of the people in your life. A good wife, a good mother is always there to support and love people unconditionally. And that really became this like trap for me.
Mm. I feel like a lot of people find themselves in that situation, and of course, not expecting it. And I was actually talking with a friend of mine a couple weeks ago, and has been married and is now since divorced, and she's also self-identify as a people pleaser, but she had never been in a narcissistic dynamic before relationship, and her most recent one turned out to be that. And she was telling me that she didn't realize that it was that dynamic until she was actually out of it. Like she even, went through that breakup and transition back into being single before she realized, like, holy crap, I was just within this, like narcissistic dynamic within that past relationship, and all of the things changed how she showed up, which she wouldn't normally show up in that way in a relationship. So it was very interesting to her. Um, I've had experiences with narcissists, not in romantic relationships, but in other relationships in my life. And it is very interesting. And especially, if I've, and I know other people too that have like tried, air quotes, tried over and over and over to create like a healthy dynamic, like an egalitarian dynamic. So, like a healthy give and take, a balance. But it just seems like no matter what, at some point it'll revert back to the power is shifted. The narcissistic person always maintains the position of power and the dynamic of the relationship. And like I said, this doesn't have to be romantic. For a lot of people, it does show up as a romantic relationship, but it could be a friend, it could be a family member. And and I think with a romantic relationship, like with my friend, like you can break up and move on. I mean, if you're married, yes, you could maybe have to go through a divorce, and that could be expensive and painful and all the things. But if it's a family member, I mean, you can't really divorce your family.
Yeah.
So like and then like thinking back and weaving in the whole concept of like life purpose and soul contracts into that too. It's just like it can become a lot, and
Yeah.
sometimes you're thinking like, seriously. Seriously, universe, really?
Yeah. It was so much. It was like I had become this version of myself that made this relationship work, which means I had to shrink in a lot of ways
Hmm.
in order to create this sense of comfort for my partner. And when I would attempt to step into more of who I was and show those traits, oh my gosh, like conflict would inevitably come up. And there really wasn't a safe way for me to truly be who I was. Um, Gaslighting was a huge part of that.
Mhm.
Every time like there was a conflict between us, it would always come back to being my fault. Like I did something to create that. And I'm really good at taking ownership of things. And so I would believe that. And I would be like, oh my gosh, okay, what can I do differently? How can I change? And I got to this place where I thought, like, if I just heal myself enough, then I can make this relationship work. And funny enough, that is was really a driver for me to get trained in energy healing, was to
Mhm.
learn how to make myself into this person where I could make this relationship dynamic, more functional. And I
Interesting.
got to a place where I was like, I'm good. Like, I've done a lot of work on myself, and I actually feel really good about who I am, and it's still not working. So it really caused me to see things in a different way of like, it's not me. It's not just my fault. Like, yes, there are two people, but no matter what I do, I cannot change, heal, or fix him.
No.
That's on him.
Yeah, and I think that's a good lesson for anybody out there, but especially any, energy workers, no matter what kind of modality you practice. It is not our job to fix people or heal them. Like, yes, there is this term energy healer, but that's not our position. Our position is to create sacred space, hold sacred space, no matter what, have our own energetic integrity. And then, it's like create a conduit for the other person to have the container to heal. But I feel like there's like this misnomer within
Yeah.
like the energetic healing community too, because of this label that I don't know where it came from, if it's something we gave to ourselves or other people gave to us, and then what we've made it mean. But the reality is like how freeing and empowering for not only the person seeking to be healed and the person who was like, that's a lot of responsibility to put on someone else. Like you go to them, they're like, okay, yeah, okay, now, yeah, you heal me, fix me. Like, no, what is that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's kind of crazy when you say it in those terms. It's like, no, how could you possibly? Because you haven't lived their life. You haven't been
Right.
through their experiences. You don't have their internal programming. They do. And
Yeah.
only they can reflect on that and change course. Only they can make the decisions and take the ownership of wanting to do something differently in order to get a different experience. You
Right.
can't live somebody else's life for them.
No, and that I think, part of a growing up as a soul, like evolving and growing into like, this term like adulting is going around these days. If we're going to be adulting as souls, then a lot of that is taking ownership and responsibility. And like you said, you almost took it to a fault to where you were like the little chameleon, it sounds like trying to
Yeah.
change anything and everything to try to, make this situation work. But there's also like realizing that, especially within a relationship dynamic, it's two people. Each person has to take ownership and responsibility for their individual role. And I can definitely understand within the dynamic of narcissistic um, behaviors how it seems always like, well, this story of, well, that's not my fault. I'm the victim. Well, this
Hmm.
happened this happened to me because of these things that are outside of my control. And so
Yeah.
that's why it's the responsibility of my environment and everyone around me to change.
Yep. Yep.
So,
You hit it so perfectly on the head. That's
it,
exactly the point of view of the narcissist.
yeah. So, if anyone out there, if this is sounding familiar, this is your wake up call. Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
And again,
Yeah.
like, it's your choice whether you want to stay or go. Like, there's no judgment, because maybe it is a person that you love deeply and you do, or there can be, therapy involved in whatever this is. I mean, there's tools that are available for many different solutions out there. But just
Yeah.
also, I think it's important for us to all like adjust our expectations and be able to see clearly what the reality is.
Yeah. Yeah. And to not take other people's stuff on as your own,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
to very clearly see like what is mine and what is somebody else's. And that's really like a beautiful gift that human design showed me, was like, what is authentic to me? And it helped me reconnect to my intuition and recognize, like, oh, this is my body signaling to me that this doesn't feel good. And if it doesn't feel good, I shouldn't do it. Like, that's not
Mhm.
meant for me. And the more I learn to like develop that self-trust of like, I actually know what's best for me. Because in a way, the opposite dynamic, the people pleaser, to put some of the spotlight on those behaviors and tendencies, is I could realize unconsciously I was choosing to give my power away in some ways in hopes that
Mhm.
somebody would rescue me, you know, not
Mhm.
wanting to be 100% responsible for my own life. And narcissists are great at telling you whatever you need to hear in order to keep you hooked in.
Mhm.
And I believed it. And and I was like, oh my God, you're going to take care of me in all of these other ways so that I don't have to grow in those ways. I don't have to be responsible for my life in those ways. And in exchange, I'm going to make sure your life is, as easy and smooth as possible. And it was this weird, like, agreement that we had, unspoken,
Mhm.
but unconsciously, that is what was happening. And so through learning, how to really like trust myself, how to connect in with what my body was trying to communicate with me, really changed everything. Because now I was approaching life from a place of, I know what's best. I don't have to give all of my power over to someone else in order to be okay. I can create that safety for myself.
Yeah.
So that required me to do so much healing in like all these different ways, like my nervous system, learning how to emotionally regulate for myself, um, just learning how to be with difficult circumstances without this desire to run in and fix and save and solve for other people. Like that was very challenging for me because that was my go-to. That's how I feel good and safe, is if I make sure you're okay.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, are there any like tools or tips and tricks that we can leave our audience with today for some of
Yeah.
that?
Absolutely. So some of my favorite go-to tools is like knowing that I'm empathic, and I believe a lot of people pleasers naturally are. That's why they become people pleasers, is
Mhm.
because they can sense, they're very attuned to what's going on in their environment. And because of that attunement, then they have this idea that like I need to fix things, because they're aware of what's happening.
Right.
So I am like constantly clearing my own energy field every morning. Like I meditate and I ground into my own energy. And okay, what is my body needing today? What am I experiencing? How can I like first go to meet my needs? I do a whole meditation around like clearing my chakras, rebalancing my energy, connecting with my guides, and it just like really sets me up for facing the day in a empowered, like sovereign way. Um, I really love tapping,
Mm.
EFT.
Mm-hmm.
When I am noticing that I'm getting dysregulated, like I'm having a thought that is bringing up fear in
Mm-hmm.
me, where my mind starts to go down this path of like, oh my God, I'm scared. I don't know what's going to happen. And tapping, I release so much energy doing that. And something interesting is I've noticed the way I release energy is I just yawn like crazy. I'm yawning, yawning.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's incredibly helpful for me. And then learning how to hold space for myself has been so key. When I notice myself getting too much in my head or having a challenging emotion arise, just like self-soothing. There's a lot of different ways to do that. You know, there's like the physical touch of like havening. That's really good for the nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
But also like just saying the things to myself that I need to hear
Yeah.
and not like expecting somebody else to give me those words, but being able to give them to myself. Being like, hey, I see, like, I am really going through a difficult time now. And I completely understand. Like, it's so valid what I'm feeling in this moment. It's so reasonable. And of course, that's what I'm experiencing. And just validating myself, giving myself permission to feel what I'm feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and saying, like, you're going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Like, you can trust yourself. This is going to pass. You know how to move through this, you know, one step at a time. Your path is going to be made more clear and obvious, you know, just like saying the things that I really need to hear and giving that to myself. Those
Yeah.
are probably the biggest ways, you know, that have helped me to
Yeah.
move through and
Well, and I
grow.
think, yeah, oh, those are beautiful and so valuable. And I think too, like really putting what you said into practice, especially for so many people out there, excuse me, goodness, that we've again, like we've been taught to not feel the feelings.
Mhm.
Or if we, at the first sign of an uncomfortable emotion, we have to like brush past it or ignore it or cover it up or, you know, imbibe in something that will make it go away, you know, in some way, shape, or form. And so just really, like you said, allowing yourself that space to have the feeling and be in it for as long as you need to, because when we allow it to be there, then eventually it will also dissipate and pass on its own. Because, like we said before, the only thing constant in this life is change. So, that uncomfortable emotion and feeling is not going to last forever. It literally
Mhm.
would be against the laws of the universe for it to last forever. So,
Mhm.
I mean,
And
if,
the more we deny it, the longer it's like we're holding on to it.
right, yes, what we resist persists. And so, if we just
Mhm.
allow ourselves that space, because that also allows ourselves, I feel like, that reflection
Mhm.
of, you know, like what was my role in bringing this up? You know, what did I do to manifest this in my life? You know, like that chance of that self responsibility to just really own our side of the street, because that again is knowledge is power, and that allows us to make different choices moving forward.
Yeah,
So, and how great
100%.
is that?
Yeah. Yeah, because we're here to grow and evolve. That's what life is all about. Like the evolution of our soul, to have
Yeah.
experiences that help us learn new things about us. And, you know, of course, there's just so much richness, so much more than that we get to
Sure.
experience. But like if we really break it down to what we're here for, and
Yeah.
sometimes that's going to bring us into really uncomfortable, challenging situations, and to trust that, like, this is all for my good. This is all for my growth. This is all for my evolution. It's happening for me. Like, just making that simple mindset shift, that change in your paradox, like, changes your entire outlook. And it makes you see, like, oh, this is possible. I can overcome this. I can see my way through this. Like it's happening because it's meant to teach me something and give me new skills, give me new strength,
Strength.
help me
Yes.
to, yeah, develop. It's like going to the gym for
Yeah.
your emotional body. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Heather, tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah. Okay. So my website is highvibeheather.com. Instagram handle is at hi.vibe.heather. You can find me at either of those places. And I also have a podcast, the High Vibe Heather podcast. And I really specialize in working with highly sensitive entrepreneurs because I am so acutely aware of the specific challenges that we face, how we have this propensity to take too much on, overextend ourselves, give too much away in exchange for too little,
Mm-hmm.
and the troubles that we get into in doing so, and how it keeps us from really living into a sustainable, personally meaningful life. So,
Well, thank
yeah,
you so much for your time and for talking about your journey and your story. I think it has helped or will help anyone that comes across this episode. So thank you, everyone. Check out highvibeheather.com. And all of these links will live on the show notes page at drlaramay.com/podcast. So if you're looking for something and you're not in a space where you can write it down, don't worry. It's there for you. Keep your eyes on the road, hands on the wheel if you're driving. And so thank you everyone for your time today. And thank you again, Heather. I really appreciate it.
yeah, thank you.
Have a good day, everyone.